Hey everyone, welcome back to BrainScratch Searchlight. I'm your host John Lorden, and today we're going to look into the case of Tara Grinstead. You can see behind me some pictures of Tara. This is someone that was a beauty pageant contestant through her high school years, and she used that to fund some of her college expenses. She was a teacher, and she helped train other girls that wanted to do beauty pageants. And she was aspiring to be a principal. However, that dream would not be realized because she went missing. So let's jump into the details and see if maybe one of you can help crack the case of what happened to Tara Grinstead. Starting with what is known as the official site, it is www.missingtara.com. Here you can find the basic information as well as some media updates, but I have to say it's not kept up to date very well. There's another website I'll show you in a bit that has some more current media. But for the basics, Tara Grinstead, missing since October 22nd, 2005, disappeared at age 31. Missing from Ocilla, Georgia. She is a female, standing 5 foot 3 inches tall, weighs 110 pounds, brown eyes, brown hair, Caucasian, and her birth date is November 14th, 1974. And as you can see here, they talk about some of the news coverage. Fox News covered it. And unfortunately, there is also some news here that her mother died a few years after she went missing, which it's already tough enough to deal with a daughter missing, but then the mother passes away as well. And I think that leaves just a lot of grief and work behind for her father in terms of trying to keep this case active. So there is some information here on who to send tips to. Of course, I will include that information in the description box below, as well as all the research, so you can go into this for yourself and look further into this case. But let's start at Wikipedia so we can get kind of the general basics. Tara Grinstead, born November 14th, 1974, is an American beauty queen and high school history teacher who lived in Ocilla, Georgia, and has been missing since October 22nd, 2005. The night before her disappearance, Grinstead visited a beauty pageant. She was active as a coach to young beauty contestants and attended a barbecue. On October 24th, 2005, a Monday morning, she did not show up for work. Coworkers called police, who went to the home where she lived alone. They found her cell phone inside the house. Her car was outside, unlocked. Her purse and keys were gone. A few interesting notes. Her cell phone was actually on the charger. This also doesn't mention it, but her clothes that she wore to the barbecue that night were found in her bedroom. And her car that was unlocked had $100 in cash in an envelope in the center console, and her family just notes that it's very strange that she would have left the car unlocked having that kind of money in there. So certainly some strange circumstances around her house for her disappearance. Local police immediately called in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, feeling that, quote, something was wrong, and the case was beyond the resources of the small town police department. The GBI found no signs of forced entry and no sign of a struggle. I believe this is a really small community. I think it's less than 5,000 people. So I can understand why the police sources would want to reach out to the GBI and get some assistance. Now moving over to findtara.com. This is another website. It's a bit simple. I think it's pretty much only this one page. However, it does include some video segments that you really want to check out. It looks like she was also mentioned on America's Most Wanted. But if you scroll down here, you will see that they have the Investigation Discovery Special. They actually have 2 copies of the same special here, as well as an update. They are also referencing a Facebook page. We'll check that out in a little bit. That also has some updates in terms of things related to the case. So another good resource just to get an overview, definitely, because you can at least check out the investigation discovery footage up on this case. Now that grief that I was talking about her father facing takes a bit of a serious turn 5 years later in 2010. They actually wind up declaring her as dead. There's a development to report tonight. A probate judge officially declared Grinstead dead. Now her father is in charge of her possessions. From the time she went missing to present day, several of her belongings have stayed frozen in time. Her car was sitting there and hasn't been moved since she went missing. Her stuff had been stored in storage and it had been sitting there since she went missing. The value of it went down to nothing. Georgia law states that a person can be presumed dead if they are missing for 4 years. So essentially this helps the father try to process some of those belongings, maybe make whatever little money he can off some of her personal effects. Of course, he states there are many things that he is going to wind up keeping, to honor her memory. But, this is already a tough enough thing to face. Every time I do one of these episodes, I really put myself in the shoes of the family and just wonder about how hard it is for them to process this. And it never occurred to me that there's even this aspect of it. There's all these things left behind that the person isn't taking care of anymore. There might be debt and financial considerations going on around this. And someone has to handle all that stuff too. And it's just another task that is put on the shoulders of these people that are burdened by this disappearance. Just my heart goes out to them. So you're probably wondering, what do we have for suspects here? Here we have some information. This is actually an article that was written about 10 years after the fact. In a 2009 feature about the case on the CBS show 48 Hours, the lead GBI investigator said, "One of the things that made this case so complicated is that she did have several romantic relationships that occurred in relative proximity to one another." The investigator Gary Rothwell, who has since retired, told the Telegraph recently that he regrets that some people who have not been cleared as possible suspects are twisting in the wind. Small town gossip and speculation have prompted finger pointing over the years. "What really bothers me about this is how unfair this case is," Rothwell said, "to everyone involved. Obviously to Tara and her family, but also unfair to many other people whose lives have been scrutinized. Irresponsible public accusations have been made about them and they have no way to respond or defend themselves. And it's frustrating that we don't have evidence to rule anyone in or out." So a couple of things come up when they look into her history. One of them is a former police officer, I believe he joins the Army if I remember correctly, that she dates for a long period of time, but while he's away they both agree that they can date other people. There is a kid that is, well, he's actually a young man, but he was a student of hers, and then a year after he was out of high school actually shows up at her house. He kind of freaks her out a little bit, grabs her arm, she manages to close the door and call authorities, and they come and pick this kid up, and then she files an official complaint against him. I still don't know. The family dialogue around that is a little strange. Even the family doesn't seem to be perfectly aware if she possibly had a relationship with that young man or not. But at least the simple basics of the story are he showed up at her house, was inappropriate, and she asked for him to be removed and held some charges against him. Then there is another curious thing. When police show up to look into what happened to her, they find a card in her door, a business card, for a police officer from a neighboring town who happens to be married. And the neighbors did confirm that this man had been coming over to her house a lot. Now, does that necessarily make him a suspect? I seriously doubt it, considering that he left a business card jammed into the door. However, there are some big questions that I would like to see answered by him in terms of the time frame of when he went there that I just can't find information on. For example, when he went there, first of all, what time was it? Is this, in the middle of the night? Was her car there at the time? Did he wonder why she didn't come and answer the door? There's pieces that might help us with the case if we knew a little more detail about his visit to the house that night. And it could be that the investigators have this information and are holding on to it to use it in some type of interview situation or to try to confirm the actual person that's guilty if they find them. And that brings us to someone who is a self-proclaimed suspect, and this kind of hits me personally just a little bit because, as you guys know, I use YouTube to try to raise awareness and do good in cases like this, and unfortunately there are people on the exact opposite end of that spectrum. Let's jump back over to Wikipedia. In February 2009, videos surfaced on the internet featuring a self-proclaimed serial killer, dubbing himself the, quote, "catch me killer." The man in the videos details what he claims are his 16 female victims, and one of these described women was determined by authorities to be Grinstead. Though the man's face and voice are digitally obscured, police eventually determined the video source to be 27-year-old Andrew Haley. A police investigation ultimately revealed the videos to be part of a bizarre, elaborate hoax, and Haley was ultimately eliminated as a substantial lead in Grinstead's disappearance. 27-year-old man, apparently married. I believe he might have even had kids, and he winds up being charged with 10 years for, I believe it's something like an obstructing justice charge. From one of the TV specials on this, they say that he's likely to serve 2 of those 10 years since it was a first-time offense. But the family also commented, you know, this isn't some teenager or something like that. This was a grown adult, and how could they do this? And I really have to wonder myself. It is just, it's terrible what some people will do for attention, simply put. You could just as easily try to do good, but instead you're going to try to grab attention by making yourself some type of fake serial killer. It's beyond me. And unfortunately, this isn't the only case where I've seen that happen. We've had a few cases where people have popped up on the internet saying stupid things to try to make it seem like they might be involved with a crime. And that just takes away resources that could be allocated to real aspects of this investigation. So I'm really, really against that. There is another piece of evidence that comes out in 2008. Police revealed that they had found DNA on a latex glove which was found in Grinstead's yard, just a stone's throw from her front stoop. According to a 2008 interview with Gary Rothwell of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Rothwell did not identify as a suspect the person whose DNA was found in the glove, but he said that person could help lead to a break in the case. "We believe it is a critical element to solving this case," Rothwell said. Rothwell said the DNA has been analyzed and agents know it's a man's DNA, but they haven't identified the man. Over the course of the investigation, he said agents have compared the DNA to dozens of men who knew Grinstead or who were associated with her. None of them matched, Rothwell said. The DNA has also been entered into Georgia and national databases, but still no matches. Now, that likely means that this person has probably not committed another crime, or perhaps they have been committing crimes but getting away from them, or perhaps this glove is not related, and there's something about it that kind of bothers me. If I think of the situation that was happening that night, the investigators seem to assume that she left with someone she knew. Her keys and her pocketbook are missing. Granted, she left behind her cell phone, so did she leave of her own accord or not? We're not perfectly sure. There doesn't seem to be signs of struggle in the house, although I did see one report of a lamp in her bedroom being broken. I'm not sure if that is a potential sign of struggle, but outside of that, there is no mention of any sign of struggle inside of her house, outside of her house. But then they find this glove on her front, just off of her front porch. And it raises the question to me, if this is someone she knew, would she really leave with them if they were wearing gloves like that? I mean, aren't you going to be suspicious as to that? If it wasn't someone she knew, why would she leave with them? We already have a history with her of being approached by someone she knew at her house and her fighting and getting away from that person and going back inside and calling authorities. Obviously, that didn't happen in this case. There is also the possibility that the person that may have abducted her was not alone, that this could be someone that was either helping in the abduction or possibly someone that went back after the fact to help clean up some evidence around the abduction. But if you consider all that, once again, I have to ask, how do you miss that glove? Do you take them off and shove them in your back pocket and one of them happens to slip out when you're walking across the lawn? It seems kind of strange to me. And I did find some comments and I do think that there might be some thought given towards, was that glove planted? Did someone intentionally leave a glove there? How hard would it be for you to grab a glove from your doctor's office or from a veterinarian? And that might explain why there is no DNA matches coming up in the criminal databases, because this person might not be related at all if that evidence is indeed planted. Now, outside of the DNA they were able to get from the glove, they also have partial fingerprints. So if they do get some true suspects in this case, they can try to compare the DNA and fingerprints, but once again, we've got all these considerations. What if it was a helper of the main culprit? What if it's not related at all? So I really don't know how critical and how much they could lean on that evidence for finding the person. The gentleman that I mentioned that she had dated for a long period of time, there was a strange thing that happened there when he came back from the military. They had been in contact even though they decided to kind of break things off. They were still speaking regularly. And then he shows back up in town and 2 weeks prior to her disappearance and doesn't tell her that he's there initially. She does find out. They have a bit of a rough conversation. And then he states that in that conversation, she had threatened to kill herself. Now, none of her family can support that she was in that kind of mindset. She was so upset when they really broke it off. She had to pull over, and her friends came and picked her up. She couldn't even drive. And at that point, I believe it's her sister, asked her directly, are you okay? Are you thinking about harming yourself? And she said, no, I'm just a little depressed, but I would never do that. So it is strange to me that you have this man, police officer, military training, showing back up without telling her. They have a rough conversation around that, and then he's going on media appearances saying, well, she was talking about killing herself. Is he completely ruled out as a suspect? He does have an alibi. He was at a bar that night until about 2 o'clock in the morning drinking. And then after that, supposedly, he was on a ride along with a police friend of his until dawn. What I find pretty curious about that is if I'm going to go on a ride along with a cop buddy of mine, am I really going to go out drinking before that till 2 o'clock in the morning? It's just a little strange in my mind. But the investigators on this case seem to be accepting that alibi. I'll tell you that if I heard that he was lying about that in some way, I would not be totally surprised. I think that there should be some very stern looks given into that alibi a bit further. I don't know if they could corroborate it further with police records of him during that ride along. And this honestly raises this whole question for me about, she seemed to be attracted to police officers to the point where she was spending time with a married one after she had broken up with another guy that was formerly a police officer. Is there some suggestion that maybe there's an officer involved in this and maybe some of the evidence is being played with, or that might support my theory about the glove being planted? Is this someone that's familiar with crime scenes and knows how to obstruct the processing of them in some way? I got to tell you, after looking into this case, I'm sitting with that thought pretty heavy on my mind. In early 2015, we do get some developments on the case.
JT Ricketson with the GBI Perry office tells 41 NBC investigators drained a pond this week in Ben Hill County. They got a tip last week saying there might be some evidence there. Ricketson says they did find some items. He adds they have not found a body or charged anyone in the case.
So apparently a tip comes in about this pond. Can we find out any further information about what might have been in there? Let's look to some articles. From HLNTV.com, almost a decade later, authorities have resumed the search after a person came forward with credible information. According to Special Agent JT Ricketson with the GBI, the information presented led investigators to a pond in Fitzgerald. Due to the active investigation, Ricketson was not able to reveal what they found, but said that he hopes this is a piece of a puzzle that will lead investigators to more information. I did find another mention of it over at WFXL.com. JT Ricketson with the GBI added at this time that they're not sure if the items have any connection to Tara Grinstead, since several years have gone by and a lot of events took place at that location. But he says there are some key items they're looking for but can't name. There are some things we don't have in our possession. When we went and did a search on her house and her property and so forth, that we don't have that are gone. I'm having trouble understanding that statement, and that is a direct quote. Let's just read that one more time. There are some things we don't have in our possession. When we went and did a search on her house and her property and so forth, that we don't have that are gone. Is he saying that evidence they collected has disappeared? I really don't know if that's just a badly worded quote or if he is giving us some insight into the fact that maybe there is someone involved on the inside of this case obstructing it in some way. I haven't found any supporting information to that thought outside of what I told you guys before, which are largely just personal opinion and gut feelings by myself. But we do know she was attracted to law enforcement officials. And this quote, the way I read it, it seems to be alluding to the fact that there is some type of evidence missing. But I don't know. You guys tell me. Finally, moving to the Facebook page, there is a new podcast that has been started specifically about this case. It's called Up and Vanished. So you will find a link for the Facebook account down below where you can see updates. Their most recent update is just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it is about the second episode of the podcast. And you can also check the podcast out for yourself. If any of you do that and you find some good information there, please be sure to share it with the rest of us in the comments below. And this is where I turn over this case to all of you. Please dig into the links I have provided. If you find any other links that have pertinent information, please add those in the comments below. If you have a tip on this case, if you possibly have heard something about someone that was involved in this case, please do the right thing. Please forward that to investigators using the information in the description box below. And if you don't have a tip, but you have friends in the Georgia area, please do me a favor, send this video to them. Make sure that everyone out there is aware of this case. Somebody knows something. If there is more than one person involved in what happened to her, it's likely that someone has talked about this at some point. Someone out there might have heard something, and this family desperately deserves having answers of what happened to their precious daughter. Before we go, I have a little bit more information I want to share with you guys. You know, sometimes I like to end these searchlights on a bit of a high note, talking about people that donate their time to great causes. This is a little bit of a story like that, but unfortunately, there's a little bit of a downside to it as well. For this, we're going to jump to patch.com and look at this article, which is breaking news about a missing Edison man being found. This news is posted as of just 1 week ago. But it talks about someone that worked on the case in terms of trying to find him. Nancy Schaffer of Bridgewater and Michael Telesco of Somerville, who run Missing in America, were out searching for Roach over the past 2 days. Schaffer recently encountered financial issues as she fully finances her organization, Missing in America. For the past 11 years, she has devoted her life to helping families find their missing loved ones at no cost to them. Unfortunately, that didn't help with her bills. She was evicted from her home in Bridgewater on August 26th. A GoFundMe site has been created prior to try to help her, but it wasn't enough. Despite being evicted last week, Schaffer is still dedicating her life to helping others. And here we can see the GoFundMe for Nancy Schaffer, founder of Missing in America. And once again, on behalf of my amazing Patreon supporters, we are going to make a donation to this GoFundMe account and hope that it gets Nancy back on her feet. After reading through this, I can tell you this is a woman that is very dedicated to trying to not just help find missing people, but to help the families that are suffering through this. She has put most of her life savings and retirement into this effort. And she is one of those people that obviously needs help at this time, and I think truly, truly deserves it. So thank you to my Patreon supporters. I will be making a donation as soon as I finish filming this video to Nancy Schaffer. And I also wanted to give a quick shout out to the person who told me about this. She has a YouTube channel of her own, SkeleBirdDraws, and she tweeted me about this account. Thank you so much, SkeleBird. I really appreciate it. And it's weird that there's this chain of kind of amazing people that that brought me to this story. SkeleBird has a channel where she vlogs about her life, and in particular her life of dealing with a brother with disabilities and taking care of him. And I watched a few of her videos, but her first vlog in particular is very open and honest about some of the critique that she hears from other people about what living a life like that can be, and that she really needs to leave her brother behind so she could live her own life. I was really moved, and it is a very brave thing that she's doing. First of all, living her life the way that she feels is right and taking care of her brother Travis. But outside of that, also sharing that with some of us and giving us some insight into those, not just the challenges, but the kind of awesome, beautiful moments that happen with that type of lifestyle as well. So thank you so much, SkeleBird. It's a pleasure getting to know you through your content, and thank you for letting me know about Nancy Schaffer. I hope that all of you, the wonderful BrainScratch audience, will please take a look at that GoFundMe, see if it's something you could support, make a donation to it if it is, and if you're also interested in SkeleBird's content, I'll have a link to her YouTube channel down below. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here on BrainScratch Searchlight. You guys know I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm working on an update to the Madison Scott case. I've heard a lot of information from her mother, who is responding in large part to your comments. I've got a bunch of responses that I will be giving to you probably next week from her, but I'm trying to hold out because there's a slight chance that I'm going to be able to interview Jordy. Her mother's trying to work on that for me. So if that comes through, I might delay that episode a little bit, but know that we have a lot more information coming your way on the Madison Scott case very, very soon. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you next time on the Lord Narts channel.